Hey guys, this is Dr. Cool Autofix. Welcome back. In today's very video edition here, I'm going to be teaching you guys exclusively about 10 symptoms of a bad mass airflow sensor. What is a mass airflow sensor? Anyway, without talking too much, let me take you to one of the car within our garage today so I can show you what mass airflow sensor looks like. And after that, we're going to dive into the symptoms of a bad mass airflow sensor. Let's go. Now, this is a typical mass airflow sensor for Toyota model. Most of them come with 5 wires. And some comes with less than 5 wires, depending on the configuration of the system. But this is what the mass airflow sensor looks like. For most of your cars, you're going to be finding it between the throttle body and the air intake boot. So most often times you might find it somewhere around here, or you might find also the intake air temperature sensor somewhere around here. But there are two different things. So this is your mass airflow sensor. And without further ado, let's get into the symptoms of the bad mass airflow sensor. Into the mass airflow sensor symptoms, what are the functions? Why is mass airflow sensor critical to the operation of the engine of your car? Let's take a look at it and judge by the position. Here it is right now. The air flow through here and go in here and pass through the filter, and before coming in here, it gets to pass through this mass airflow sensor before it goes inside, because it's meant to calculate the amount of air that is going inside the engine. That's why they say mass. That's the mass of air going into the engine. So it's going to be calculated and give the ECM the right input values of the amount of air that is going inside this engine when the throttle body opens. So it plays a critical role in calculating the chunk of air that is going inside the engine. However, we're going to be diving into knowing the do's and don'ts, what happens when you get dirty after this very video.
Hi there, I am Dr. Cool Autofix. I will be teaching you 9 symptoms of bad MAF sensor replacement cost and how to diagnose it. The mass airflow sensor or MAF sensor measures the air entering the engine to calculate the correct air-fuel mixture. The mass airflow sensor MAF is an important part for car engines to function properly. It measures how much air that enters the car engine and then sends this information to the engine control module, which then adjusts how much fuel the fuel injectors should inject into the engine. Unfortunately, it sometimes happens that the MAF sensor gets worn or bad. In this content we will talk about the symptoms of a bad MAF sensor, location, and replacement cost. Symptoms of a bad or failing MAF sensor include: 1. Check engine light illuminates. The engine control module monitors all sensors in the car engine to ensure that everything is okay. If a sensor sends an incorrect signal, the ECM or PCM will turn on the check engine indicator light. Therefore, if your MAF sensor is faulty and sends wrong information to the engine control unit, the check engine light will illuminate your dashboard. However, the engine control module does not always recognize a faulty MAF sensor, so it may still be defective even if there is no engine light on your dashboard. But, if your check engine light is illuminating, you want to check the diagnostic trouble codes first with an OBD2 scanner. 2. Slow acceleration. Your engine needs a perfect air-fuel mixture in the combustion chamber for optimal performance. A faulty MAF sensor can cause a faulty air-fuel mixture, and it can cause many strange performance issues with your car, and slow acceleration is one of them. If you notice that your car is much slower than usual, there is a significant risk that your MAF sensor is at fault. 3. Hesitation, rough or jerky acceleration. As you may suspect, a faulty fuel injection caused by a poor MAF sensor can also make your acceleration rough or jerky. This is usually because the air-fuel mixture becomes too lean, so the car engine starves due to lack of food, and this will cause it to jerk. If the air-fuel mixture is too rich, it can also extinguish the ignition created by the spark plug, which causes the acceleration to be rough. 4. Hard starting condition. If you notice that your car has become more difficult to start in the morning, there is a chance that a bad air mass sensor is causing the problem. All car engines are very sensitive to the right airflow mixture at the exact starting moment. If the wrong amount of fuel is injected into the engine at the moment, your car may not start at all or just crank a little longer than usual. 5. Black smoke from exhaust pipe. Black smoke from the exhaust pipe is a strong sign that your engine is getting too much amount of fuel compared to the amount of air. Therefore, if you realize that a lot of black smoke is pouring out of your exhaust pipe, there is a significant risk that your engine runs too rich, which a bad MAF sensor could cause. You can also notice a little more gray smoke from the exhaust pipe than usual if your engine runs rich. This can also damage your catalytic converter, which is very expensive, so you definitely want to fix it as soon as possible. 6. Rough idle. The car engine's most sensitive situation for engine problems is at idle and during the starting moment. Therefore, it is very likely that problems will occur at idle also. If your idle has become very rough lately, or if the engine is stalling, there is a big risk that your MAF sensor has gone bad. 7. Misfires. Misfires occur when one or more cylinders fail to burn the fuel. To burn the fuel correctly, the engine needs three things: the right air-fuel ratio, ignition, and compression. Therefore, if the air-fuel mixture is very far beyond the specifications, it may cause one or more cylinders not to ignite at all, and this will cause the engine to ignite incorrectly, causing a misfire. If you find any trouble codes related to misfires, it can be a sign of a bad mass airflow sensor. 8. High fuel consumption. This last symptom is probably the most obvious because you already know that a faulty MAF sensor is causing a faulty air-fuel mixture. Therefore, a faulty MAF sensor can cause fuel consumption to either go up or down. You may think that reduced fuel consumption is a good thing, but it can actually damage your engine, which will make it more expensive in the long run. 9. Car starts then dies. This attribute is often peculiar to some car brands such as Mercedes, BMW and most European cars. Due to the fact that MAF sensor input data is very important to the peak performance of the engine, in order to avoid damage to the engine which will result into very expensive repairs, this manufacturer sets a threshold parameters which, when this sensor performs below it, will prompt the PCM to shut down the engine.
Still on the mass airflow sensor. Now, if you are having a poor throttle response, engine underperformance, engine hiccup, or sometimes your car runs rich or runs lean, and sometimes your engine takes time to start, and you scan your car and you're finding a trouble code relating to mass airflow sensor. I repeat, do not replace the mass airflow sensor, right? The reason why I say this is because sometimes, most of the times, due to a bad air filter which you have not replaced for quite a long time, is going to be allowing some dirt particles to contaminate the mass airflow sensor. And now when you have a lot of dirt that's actually covering, which you can see with your naked eyes, then it's going to shield the mass airflow sensor from delivering the right input values it's supposed to be given to the ECM of your car. And when this happens, it's going to start throwing all these error codes, and not just only error codes, putting up all these symptoms such as hesitation upon acceleration, poor throttle response, engine hiccuping, running lean sometimes, and running rich sometimes. So when you start experiencing any of these symptoms which I'm talking about here, or even hard start, or the car starts and stall, if you start experiencing any of these issues which I'm talking about here, and you are seeing an error code on relating to mass airflow sensor, do not replace your mass airflow sensor. You're gonna save yourself a whole lot of $500 or even $400 to $300, depending on the car make and model. If it is most European models, they're gonna be billing you almost about $500 for a very OEM mass airflow sensor. So in that regard, I want you to go ahead and get a cheap mass airflow sensor cleaner and use it to clean it out, allow it to dry. Before cleaning it, make sure you take it out of the vehicle, the mass airflow sensor out of the vehicle, disconnect it from the circuit, and clean it with the dedicated mass airflow sensor cleaner before then. Allow it to dry completely, dry to touch. Do not touch it with your hands because your hand can also contaminate it. When you can't see any sign of moisture within it, then you can be able to install it back and put it back as it is. Then you can go ahead and start up your car. Do not install it while it's still wet because it's going to create a lot of issues. All right?
Where is the MAF sensor location? The MAF sensor is located on the large hose between the intake manifold and the air filter box, often installed on the air filter box. Its exact location varies from manufacturer to manufacturer, as they fit the sensor based on the engine design. You can use a repair manual to find the exact location or use the internet for a quick search. Check out the pictures for a clue as to where it can be placed. Cleaning a dirty MAF sensor. Often, the problems associated with the mass airflow sensor occur due to dirt and debris buildup on the sensor head. This particle accumulation over time results in poor performance of the sensor. Cleaning the MAF sensor is often relatively straightforward. Just remove the sensor head from the MAF sensor housing and carefully clean the sensor's hot wire with an electronic cleaner or a specific MAF sensor cleaner like this one. However, the sensor's hot wire is very sensitive and you can easily damage it, therefore you don't want to touch it with your hands or with a towel. Just spray it and let it dry, it should be enough. Diagnosing a failing mass airflow sensor. MAF sensors can often be quite expensive, and therefore it is important to make a correct diagnosis before choosing to replace the MAF sensor. Diagnosing a MAF sensor is often relatively easy if you know what to look for. But to diagnose the MAF sensor correctly, you must have correctly measured values for your specific car engine and model, which you can find in a repair manual. Connect an OBD2 scanner and check the live data from the MAF sensor on idle. It should be 0 milligrams, while in some car make will be just about the figure approximately to the size of the engine in grams. Start the car and check the values from the MAF sensor again. It should go up when you rev the engine and down as the engine RPM decreases. If the value is stable, there is either something wrong with your diagnostic tool, MAF sensor, or the wirings to it. Remove the plug to the MAF sensor and check for corrosion. Check your repair manual to measure the sensor and the wirings to it. You can find out more about clean or replace the MAF sensor if faulty or repair the wirings. MAF sensor replacement cost. The average MAF sensor replacement cost is between $140 and $550, depending on the car model and labor costs. A mass airflow sensor costs $100 and $400, and you can expect the labor costs to be $40 to $150. The MAF sensor is often quite expensive, as you sometimes have to replace the whole MAF sensor housing also, but even just the sensor itself can be quite expensive. Fortunately, it is often very easy to replace the MAF sensor and is done in 10 minutes for most car models. You can often do this yourself if you only have basic car knowledge. MAF sensor FAQs. What happens when the MAF sensor goes bad? The MAF sensor is a vital part of the car engine, and therefore a lot of things can happen to your car engine when it gets bad. The most common things that happen are a control lamp, poor engine performance, uneven idling, and changed fuel consumption. How do you test a MAF sensor? To test a MAF sensor, you need a multimeter to measure the resistance in the sensor. To know which resistance you should see on the multimeter, you can look it up in your repair manual for your car model. Can you drive with a bad mass airflow sensor? A bad air mass sensor can cause many problems with your car engine, and therefore it is not recommended to drive with it. However, if your engine is running well, you can drive slowly to the nearest workshop. How often does a mass airflow sensor need to be replaced? There is no service schedule for when to replace the MAF sensor. The MAF sensor is made to last the life of the vehicle, so it should only be replaced if it is faulty. However, you can clean the MAF sensor every 100,000 miles to keep it functional. Now that you know all about this MAF sensor, see on my next video about symptoms of a bad MAF sensor.
One of the critical information which I want you guys to take home in this very video here, which might not be explained in the video which you have watched right now about the mass airflow sensor, is that when the mass airflow sensor is dirty, most of the times it throws an error code which often confuses a lot of people to think that the mass airflow sensor is bad. But in that situation there, before replacing your mass airflow sensor, it's very pertinent for you to use the mass airflow sensor cleaner to clean the mass airflow sensor before thinking about replacing it. And before thinking about replacing it, clear up the error code and see if the trouble code still remains. If the trouble code is no more longer there, then you don't need to replace the mass airflow sensor, because most mass airflow sensor hardly fail. And I've seen it in most mechanic garage that the reason why they actually replace it because it's dirty, not because it's really bad. So before replacing it, make sure that you clean the mass airflow sensor using the mass airflow sensor specified cleaner that is made specifically for cleaning the mass airflow sensor before you replace it. And also, when trying to solve a mass airflow sensor problem, it's also very important that you check the air filter. Now this is the mass air filter here, which is positioned right here. You need to replace it most of the time so it will avoid contaminating the mass airflow sensor when you replace it. So these two works together. Now if you don't replace it, it's going to contaminate it and it's going to start giving an error code about the mass airflow sensor. Now I treated about error code about mass airflow sensor, which really explains how those error code plays about if it is a dirt that's actually occurring within the mass airflow sensor. There is a dedicated error code about dirt that is shielding the mass airflow sensor from giving the right input values it's supposed to be supplying to the ECM. So you want to check those error code and be sure that you are not replacing your mass airflow sensor for the wrong one, because it is expensive. A very good one goes around $300, depending on your car make and model. So I hope you find this very video very helpful. Do give this video a thumbs up and share with others who are having a problem with their mass airflow sensor, and I'll see you guys later on the next episode. Bye for now.